event. I will be joined by my wonderful star, Ryan Kiser, and my London-based producer, Mem Ferda. Gentlemen, if you want to come on down and join me. Big round of applause. Thank you, guys. So I don't see anyone vomiting, which is, good for you, not so great for me, but whatever. So, I'm going to open the floor to questions.
Jessica.
Yes, darling.
You're one sick puppy.
Well, that's more of a comment, now isn't.
Well, how difficult was it directing and starring?
It's a fucking nightmare, don't do it. If I could have afforded another actress, I would have hired one. I couldn't, so I acted in it myself. It's really hard because your objective is totally different when you're in the scene acting versus as a director. As an actor, you care about your own objective and what you're trying to get through to the other characters and what you want. As a director, you have to care about all of the characters, the through line of the storyline, is it lit right, is it in focus, is it in frame, how is the sound? So quite frankly, it's too much and they conflict. So I definitely feel like my performance suffered as a result of me directing. And when I've directed, I directed the short in front of the feature that you saw, and I've done a few other little directing things. It is a lot better to focus on one or the other, in my humble opinion. The difference, you can feel the difference when you're giving 100% to directing, or 100% to acting, or when you have to split it up, and it's simply not 100% on both. So come and get a picture. Anybody who asks a question, I only have so many pictures, but we will sign them after. We can't sign them right now, but we will sign them. Next question. Yes, darling.
I love the film.
Thank you.
You did offend me in a good way.
Awesome. Well, as long as I offended you in a good way.
It reminded me quite a lot of James Cullen Bressic's film Hate Crime, which is completely, in my opinion, really uncomfortable to watch, but it's somehow, I couldn't stop. Now, when you were writing that, when it came to such things, obviously you highlighted YouTube quite often. Has anyone actually from YouTube themselves seen this film?
I don't think so. I'm waiting for it. Hopefully they do. I'm sure we're going to have lots of comments. The YouTubers are a special breed in and of themselves now, aren't they? Right? They really do. I fought them on some of the dialogue that you see in the movie when it references what they're saying about Brandon Van Vliet's character. And it wasn't until my co-writer, Jonathan Scott Higgins, pulled up YouTube page. He's like, no, that's how they talk. I was like, gosh darn it, you're right. So we kept it consistent and accurate. So I look forward to hearing what they have to say and trying not to find them and beat them up. Next question. Yes, darling.
What are the two movies that influenced you, influenced all of you into getting into filmmaking in the first place?
Two films that influenced me into getting into filmmaking. I don't know. Here's the thing. I was kind of forced into it. I fell into it. I had a corporate job. And upon getting hired at a corporate job, they told me on my first review that I spoke too fast. And there was no speech classes in the state of Ohio, fun fact. So my immediate boss said to talk slowly around to stupid people, take an acting class, and tell them that's what fixed it. And that's how I fell in love. As far as becoming a filmmaker, I guess not so much, was it Dead Hooker in a Trunk or was it American Mary? It's hard to say. Because I saw them both pretty early on. Dead Hooker in the Trunk is definitely when I was like, holy shit. The Saskas are amazing, and wow. And then when I went to go make Truth or Dare, although I'd seen American Mary, it was probably more Dead Hooker that was like, you know what, if the Saskas can do Dead Hooker in a Trunk, I can fucking do Truth or Dare. And then I know Bob Kurtzman, and I've mentioned The Wishmaster in several interviews. It was one of my very first horror films I fell in love with that had a wonderful sort of moral at the end of it, which is be careful what you wish for. Bob has been a very dear friend and a wonderful inspiration to me through this whole thing and has supported me through my career. So probably those. How about you?
Two films that influenced my acting. I don't know exactly because I grew up as a kid, doing like school plays and stuff like that, and then I ended up quitting at some point. It's not cool to be a drama kid, when you're growing up. Luckily, I fell back into it about 7 or 8 years ago. But I'd say, like, for a favorite film and actors and stuff like that, I love the whole entire cast, crew, everything involved with Goodfellas is my favorite. So.
For me, I guess it was Hitchcock. Kind of Psycho was probably one of the first films I ever saw, and that influenced me quite a lot. And then obviously Scarface and I don't know if anyone knows me, but I do a lot of play a lot of hitmen and stuff like that, and it kind of all stemmed from that really, from seeing the movies of departments movies, and that kind of influenced me a lot.
Next question. Yes, darling?
Do you anticipate any censorship problems?
Yes.
Some of it?
I expect lots of censorship problems.
Over here, yeah.
Yes, I actually have a friend in the back from the BBC censorship board. Thanks for watching! Remember, we're buddies! No, don't forget that. Yeah, and Paul told me yesterday, I think it was, where he's like, we almost couldn't play your movie. And I was like, what? Why? And they're like, well, because there's one scene, and it's not the one you'd think. I was thinking it'd be the one with Dummy Pin and the bottle, which is really a romantic scene at heart. But it actually was not. Apparently, you wonderful folks over here across the pond have a problem with male genitalia getting removed. And to me, that was by far the least offensive part of the entire film. Quite frankly, I was kind of upset. I was like, really? That's it? Man, you're fine with everything right after? Really? And they're like, yeah, that was the only thing. So, but yes, I suspect they will. We will make sure that my version is available somewhere, even if I just have to fucking keep putting it up online, randomly under false pseudonyms. At some point, it'll be available. But I do suspect that different countries will censor it. Several distributors have told me that, it's 84 minutes. Great, we can cut 4 minutes out. To which I have to be like, fuck you, to my laptop and then politically correct their face. So stay tuned. Yes.
Is there a specific reason why you picked those actors for those roles?
Why I picked the actors for the roles? First of all, because I knew that they were phenomenal actors, or at least most of them. I had worked with Dummy Pin, Ryan Kiser, Heather Dorff, Brandon Van Vliet before, and they were all phenomenal. I knew that they could work incredibly long hours, and that they would not only be great in the scenes, but they would shut the fuck up and do what I said. And that they were really going to be in it to win it. That they weren't going to give me a headache about going over 12 hours. Here's the reality, when you shoot on independent films, you shoot very long hours. You don't always get proper breaks. It's not always the most ideal circumstances, but you have to have people who are really in it for the right reasons, and I knew that they were. And then everybody that I cast subsequent, I was really honest to be like, hey, heads up, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be really difficult. If this isn't your thing, that's no problem. If it is, that's great. And that's how I found some of the others. So, but those four, it was written specifically for them. In fact, Brandon Van Vliet's character came up years ago. I had a podcast, and somebody said to me, they were doing rapid fire questions, and one of their questions was, okay, so name a person who you think of when I say these statements. And one of the statements was, you gotta call in the middle of the night. Who is it, and what are they saying? And I said, Brandon Van Vliet. And he's telling me, she said she was 17, Jessica. So Brandon, I'm like, still, it could happen any moment. I could get that call right now. And I would be like, Brandon. And then every time I told it to people who know Brandon, they're like, yeah. And it made it into the script. Next question. Did you get a poster? Oh, I'll give you one. Next question. Yes, darling.
How much fake blood did you use in that?
Oh God, so much fake blood, right? Could you pass this down, darling? This gentleman right there. How much fake blood? I honestly don't know. We had to keep making more because we just kept throwing it around. There were certainly several gallons, and we kept on having to make sure that it read properly on camera because I hate blood that looks like fake blood. It has to look real. So we were really meticulous. It got so sticky, all of our crew were walking out of their shoes because it was so sticky on the ground that their shoes would stick. So gallons upon gallons.
I still have those boots, and they still have blood in there.
Yeah, it just randomly pops up everywhere.
Yeah.
Next question? Yes, in the white shirt.
Yeah, I guess we can see now why you didn't go through a studio and have any problems with that.
Right?
Did you censor yourselves at all? Was there any one thing that you thought maybe we'll put that in and then thought, nah, we can't do that?
No. And here's the thing, don't get me wrong, if I'm ever doing a studio film, which I honestly don't know if I ever am going to because I don't like to be fucking censored, it takes a lot of fun out of it for me. When I act, sometimes I act in bigger projects and I do what I'm told and they're censored and it's not my job nor my responsibility. But as a director, I just want to make the most fun film that I as a horror fan want to see. So I'm not so sure that I'll ever really care to direct a studio picture where somebody else is telling me what to do, because quite frankly, I don't like that. It's not a lot of fun. I do know there was at one point, which was the second part of the romantic bottle scene, the second part of that, I was chatting with John, and he was like, oh, I had an idea. And I was like, what? He's like, I don't know if we could do it. And I was like, no, we have to. What is it? And they told me. I was like, how? We have to do that. That's perfect. How can we not do that? So that was the closest we got to any hesitation whatsoever. And it was more like, no, fucking A, yeah. Hell yeah. Next question?
Jessica,
Yes.
I just want to say, well, it's a compliment to both you and Ryan. I felt the chemistry between you two, even though it was quite fucked up. Excuse my little phrase. But Ryan, you scared the shit out of me in a couple of scenes. You reminded me of Jack Nicholson from The Shining. It was only expression. We were actually waiting with the knife scene.
Thank you. It's a fine compliment.
Jessica, you are totally badass with that rifle.
Thank you.
I'm not going to go near you with a rifle, I tell you.
Yeah, you shouldn't. I grew up a country girl. I definitely handle myself around weapons. But thank you. That was, you know what, we had originally that scene play out a little bit differently in the script. And it was a day of, and we were behind schedule, as we always are. You're never making a movie and be like, we are ahead of schedule. Doesn't happen. If it does, you probably fucked up somewhere. So go back and figure out what you have to shoot. But so we were behind schedule, and we kind of had this epiphany where we were like, I should just shoot him in the fucking face, you know? And in the sequel, you get into a little bit more of my backstory and my character having killed a man and gone to an insane asylum in her young age for killing the man that raped her. And that's where we open up the sequel back there. Next question? Yes, darling.
For the bottle masturbation scene, how did you create the sound effect?
Trial, tested, and error. I actually, side note, that's one of my favorite scenes to cut. If for no other reason than our other producer who was on board, who's not here, he would nearly vomit every time we'd watch it. Every time. It was great. So I would be like, no, we have to go back and rewatch it. He'd be like, not again. I was like, yes, we're going to keep doing it until I make you sick. So he did. He had to leave the room. He actually nearly vomited at the Los Angeles screening, which is
It's
great.
a trade secret. We can't reveal that.
Right. No, it was an actual sound effect. They Foleyed it, and I wasn't there when they did the Foley, but then we put it in, and they adjusted it, and then we upped the volume. So that was the thing. Nobody wanted it to be as loud as what you heard. I was like, no, it needs to be so fucking juicy. It has to be like you're in the room. I want to feel the bottle. You know, every audience, every woman needs to be like, holy shit, that's a fucking bottle right there. So we just kept manipulating it until I got the reaction from the people that I was testing it from. But I liked it. I thought it turned out cool. Yes, darling.
Hey, Jess, I wanted to know about like the shoot. How long did it take, and did you all go a little crazy trapped in that room?
I didn't give them enough time to go crazy. We shot 9 days over 11, which, you know, filmmaking, that's atrocious. And I'm going to ask you next if you're so early. So I basically just kept them working so hard that nobody had time to. I don't know. Ryan, did you feel it? You probably felt like you went a little crazy.
Yeah, I got a story about that.
I do have a story about that actually. We got so, I mean, we're in this house together for, I can't remember how long we were there, but long enough. 9 days over 11, Jess tells me. But long enough to the point that we were around each other so much and working on this thing so much. At one point, Brandon and I were in the same room, and our producer, John, he's like, do you know, you were talking to Brandon, you were talking in your sleep, and he was doing my dialogue, and I was answering back to him, apparently. So, yeah, it did affect us a little bit, I guess.
It did, but I didn't see that. I just cared that they would come to set and do their shit. And I'm really impressed with Ryan, because you don't realize it when you watch it. And I didn't realize it when I wrote the script. I realized it when we printed out the sides. For those of you who don't know, we print out the script pages every day that we're going to be filming. And I would be like, oh, I've got 12 lines. Great. Kiser has 9 pages. Sure. And he would just, every day, it was like this endless streams of monologues he'd have to do. And then he'd have like very specific actions. So it'd be like, I have to take the knife out, cut the tie, take the voice changer, turn on the camera. So that was probably the hardest part. And I think he went a little bit insane from that. There was like a moment where he was like, what do I do? Do I turn the camera on now or do I turn it on after? And we're like, don't worry, we'll fix it. Next question. Yes, gentleman right behind. Yes.
Yeah, was anybody actually sick on set?
Yes.
We've had any influence over the score?
We had several people sick on set. We had several people vomit partially or nearly upon watching the playback of the bottle scene, which is great. You can actually see We have a clip of that on YouTube somewhere, 'cause, me being me, I filmed their reactions, just because I thought it was so entertaining. And then we actually kept it in the frame. The scene of Ray after her sister has died. He goes to her outside thigh, and he's actually going to vomit. And then he goes right back to it, so I didn't cut. I just let him keep playing. I was like, we had a safe word on set. So I was like, well, if he doesn't call the safe word, then he's fine. You know, ignore the vomit. And he was, and it was the best take. And I did warn him. I was like, are you okay if I use that take? He's like, no, it's fine. My character would have done it. I was like, I agree. Your character totally would have done it. Thanks. So we actually kept it in, and then we had to keep the vomit there for a couple of scenes because we wanted, because there's some that you can see more of it in it. And so that was kind of a bit disturbing. But for continuity, we couldn't remove it once we had established it. So yeah. Next question. Yes, darling, with the blazer.
Yeah, because you're relying just on a single location and lots of dialogue, is it a lot of work keeping up the interest and tension in the scripting and editing stage?
You know, it did a lot of work. I think it is. We weren't really thinking about that, though, at the time. I think it worked out really, really well, and I'll tell you what, for the rest of the franchise, we intend to do them all the same way. I think it's a really interesting challenge because I, as a horror fan, usually find that I get very boring and even bored when a film takes place largely in one room. And even when I watch this back, I don't really realize it does until I point it out or pay attention to it. I made the damn thing. So I think it's really just about having interesting shots and then interesting things happening. You know, it's all about what's going on in front of the camera. If people realize that you're still in the same room, you probably did something else wrong, that another location might temporarily solve the problem, but not really. So, but I do like the formula, and I want to keep it consistent for the rest of the films in the series.
And it's written extremely well as well, and that's got a lot to do with it. You know, it does.
Thank you.
When I first read the script and Jen sent it over, you know, I found it really gripping. You know, and I really had, like, I was turning one page over another, wanted to know what happened. So I think really it is to do with the quality of the writing. Really, that's, you know, that can work tremendously well without having to kind of change locations every minute in order to keep someone's interest.
And we did, for the record as well, there was a moment where we did leave in the scripts. Reporters come to the door upon seeing the videos on YouTube, and then we used that opportunity to try to get away. But it just sort of slowed down the momentum that we found when we tested it in front of an audience, that it sort of got them up to a 10 and then brought them back down to a 4, and then we had to build them back up, and it just wasn't working right. So we actually cut out all those little scenes where we tried to get away. It is a good outtake. Next question, yes, darling.
Just a couple of questions, really. One is, what are the other festivals called that you take to other festivals?
Yes.
And secondly, who is Stunt Cunt on the...
That is, first question. So we've taken it to, I think we're approaching our 30th festival. We've got 29 awards and counting. So we're very excited. We played all over the world, and so far they've been very kind and very gracious. Ask me about the credit after when I'm not on camera. Because I feel like, I know when I'm going to get in trouble. So there's a credit that we'll talk about later. Next question.
Censorship!
Fuck censorship! I'm sorry, darling. Next question. Any other questions? Yes.
Since there was 2 writers and limited amounts of dares you can include, was there any dares that you wanted that you had to beat?
There are actually a lot of dares that just didn't work for the pacing, but we always kind of planned for it to be a series. So if it doesn't work for this one, then we're just like, well, for the next one. So we kind of thought of just a whole bunch of really fun dares and truths and where they could go, and some worked for the storyline and some did not. So we have extra material. But now we're like they kind of seem boring now that we've lived with the dare like in our mind for a while. You know, now we're kind of like, fuck, I really want to do something even more fun and entertaining. Fun means really fucked up. So we'll see. Next question. Yes, darling.
You spent most of the film without any fake blood on you. Did that build any resentment that the other actors had?
You know, it was actually a fluke. We had the proper wardrobe to get me completely bloody. But what I did is we shot it in order. A, because we were shooting over 9 days, which is vicious. So I actually shot everything in the house is shot in order of sequence, which basically means we go from A to Z in order. So how we kind of played it is we're like, you know, as far as wardrobe and continuity goes, whatever happens is going to happen. And once we establish it, if it's in the frame, we'll keep it. So I just happened to not get bloody. All the blood kept missing me, including with like Dora, because like when they do the stab to the hand, I totally thought I'd get blood, and she missed me completely because she went, you know, back towards her face and not at all towards me. So I just ended up staying completely clean, so we just kept it. I couldn't return the wardrobe though, which sucked because I bought it overseas. Really angry. Like a producer on me is like, damn it, I could have had a refund. Next question.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
Didn't hear from this lovely young lady.
Sorry, pardon, I can't hear you.
Basically, one of the most fucked up films I think I've seen in a very long time. And I'm just wondering where Ryan got his inspiration for his character, because he is messed up in the head.
Where did Ryan get his inspiration?
Where was his inspiration from?
Oh.
He's just freaked the hell out of me.
Ryan? Well, I'll tell you, when we were writing it, we know all these unemployed actors in LA, which I think are fucking frightening. Because the only thing worse than an actor is an unemployed, desperate one. And LA is filled with them. They're your baristas, they're your waiters, they're everywhere. So I was like, well, I wonder what would happen if we put them around people who have what they want, and they're not doing the right things, or at least in this man's opinion. And that's kind of how we wrote the character. But what was your inspiration in actually crafting the character?
Actually, well, Jess and I talked about it beforehand, and yeah, that's kind of what we came up with, what she was just describing. And up until the day we were shooting, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, to be honest. And we were driving down there to the location, and Brandon Van Vliet's like, dude, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't really know. So a lot of it just really happened in the moment, organically happened in the moment. So I don't really know what my inspiration was. My mom. Let's hear in the back.
Alrighty, I think we have time for one or two more. Well, I've only got one more flyer, so one more question. Yes.
Do you have a favourite dare? No.
Do I have a favorite dare? See, they're all like my children. It's really hard to pick a favorite, to be quite frank. You know what? I had a lot of fun researching the romantic bottle scene. It's actually a true story. Fatty Arbuckle did it forever and a decade ago, and it actually ruined his career. He was the most successful actor at the time, and he did that on a young lady with a champagne bottle, killed her, and I don't think he was convicted. It's been over a year since I looked at it. But trying to do like the research, it was an unknown actress, so trying to find images and pictures and documentation, and I don't know if you were around. If you lived through the 80s, you were probably aware of all of the pool scares, right? So any child in the 80s, we were always told, at least in America and Canada, don't sit on a drain in a pool, it'll suck out your intestines. And it's actually it does. It did happen, and multiple times where it's like if the drain wasn't properly secured or properly covered, it would actually suction everything out. So that was probably the most fun to sort of research and try to find like video footage and photographs for.
Final Destination.
Right? Yes.
Final Destination.
It is in Final Destination. I never see, here's the thing, I try to never trust movies because they like to lie. I always have to go to like actual crime scene stuff and be like, does this look right? We had a kidney that was an accurate kidney. It was a duplicate by size and shape, and then we got it on camera and it looked fake. And I'm like, fuck. It's statistically accurate, but it doesn't look fake, so we have to make another one. But yeah, so I always do my own research outside of the films, just because films like to fake that stuff. And I wanted it to be as real as possible. And I love research. Research is fun. Yeah. Okay, awesome. I will be upstairs. If you guys have any more questions, you can come to me directly. If I give you a poster, I will happily sign them. I have to do the carpet at 5:30, but I will be around and I will sign them.